K-Wave 6 Radio, your show for all things positive. Well, good morning and welcome to K-Wave 6 Radio. This is Kirk Spencer, your host. Today, as always, it seems like every day is a new set of surprises. This morning I have not only Melanie Beres on the line with us, we have our executive producer, my good friend, my little brother, Andy Peter. And that was all these things just popping up all over the place. Last week I couldn't get on the air, I screwed it up, and now this week I've got more than I planned on, which is all, this is better. So at any rate, today my guest is Melanie Beres. She is one heck of a good friend. She's very intelligent. I'm going to give you the short list. She can give you the long list of her accomplishments. She's an international journalist. She's a theater professor and a producer. She is a mother of four. She's a publicist of City Gal magazine. She's an activist, and like I said, that's the short list. And after you hear all that, you kind of like, what else could she squeeze in? Well, she's also working on her doctorate degree, and she's here to talk about that. Today, we're going to open the phone lines. We're going to have a 90-minute show. So we're going to open the phone lines in the last half hour, unless Melanie says, hey, let's open them sooner. I don't know. We'll see what happens. And you can call in. We've got the chat room already open, but we ask that you actually listen to what she has to say before you start chatting away and sending us or trying to call us. Just for reference, if you want to call into us, actually I'm going to let Andy tell us. How do you call into us now today there, Andy? Are we still calling on the same number?
Yeah, it's in the chat room. The calling number, when prompted to do so by the host, in the USA and Canada is 347-677-0812, and that's 347-677-0812. And for the UK, it's 01444-390-270.
Cool. And I would believe we still have Skype available for people to call in on?
Yeah, if they add Freedom Talk Radio #1, I'll accept them. They can also go to the Blog Talk Radio player and press the Skype button, and then you'll be put in the host queue.
Perfect. Yeah, that's what I was looking at. Andy's got me on a new way of calling in, and it's like, okay, I'm not sure how to work this one, but he does it a lot more than I do. So anyway, little brothers teach the older brother sometimes. So anyway, welcome to the show, Melanie. How are you this morning?
Hello. I'm very well, and you?
We're doing just fine. As I was telling Andy a little bit earlier, I was trying to get some stuff done before we got onto the show, and Andy saw this, and he said, I'm really interested in that, so that's why he's here. But actually, before we get into that, let me just kind of give some time for people to get logged in onto the show and whatnot. Andy, tell us what, just in case some other people don't know what Andy's shows are, Andy is very active in the child abuse, human trafficking, and all that kind of stuff. I will let Andy tell a little bit about what he does on the radio and what he does when he's not on the radio. Andy, why don't you tell us something about that? Did Andy disappear?
No, Andy didn't disappear. Andy was going to do something very unhuman because they're animals. But I never got a chance because you called me.
That's okay. That's okay. It's nice hearing the birds in the background.
Yeah, no, what we do on the network, we're always looking for hosts. What everybody else does is their own thing. They do biblical shows, they do spiritual shows, they do music shows. But I concentrate on a little bit of activism where people with health problems get the health help. People who've got a problem against the politicians or make it known to them what that is, and just really generally peacefully encourage freedom of speech. Although it's getting a bit difficult with ObamaNet. I know we don't want to go into politics, but they seem to be restricting your freedom now on the internet in the USA. Will David Cameron, the little poodle, follow? Probably.
Did what?
Will David Cameron in the UK probably follow the US? They probably will.
Yeah, probably. I'm surprised Britain didn't start it first. But now tell us about your interest with this. You have some shows that are basically geared towards, the human trafficking, the child abuse, or the system of social workers and whatnot. And tell us a little bit about that. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, well, on a Thursday night, you'll find some solutions on our common law show. Now, that is solutions for the child care problems. But on a Friday, we'll talk about people's issues with the social workers, how they target the children and the families. You have to be dysfunctional, as people say, as parents. Now, a dysfunction can be somebody with a learning disability. They could have ill health. They could be mentally disordered. They could be unemployed, have a drug habit. And because of you in that category, whether you go to health, whether you go to teaching, whether you go to a job, basically when you flag up to anyone within the society of we're the boss, and that's government figures and departments, you'll then eventually get targeted by a social worker who will come in and take your children. And we try and provide a listening ear and some support, as well as getting them help in the family courts.
Okay. Cool. Well, with that, hopefully we have all the people that are going to show up right now. So, Melanie, tell us, you want to talk about dysfunctional personalities and family dysfunctions, or as we said in the title, disorders. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with what you do as a journalist, or your studies and whatnot? Go ahead.
I don't quite know if everybody understands what a personality disorder is.
Okay.
So we can start there.
Sounds wonderful.
And a personality disorder is a class of mental disorders that are characterized by long-lasting, rigid patterns of thought and behavior. And because of the inflexibility and pervasiveness of these patterns, they can cause serious problems and impairment of the functioning persons who are afflicted with these disorders, and they can cause long-lasting health effects on those that live with these people, that are children of these people, spouses, neighbors, you name it, co-workers. It is so massively pervasive and so ordinary that people don't really understand it. So that is a personality disorder. The DSM gods, the psych gods are really having trouble coming up with a baseline for narcissists, because there's covert narcissists, there's overt narcissists, there's passive aggressive, there's antisocial, there's schizoid. So they just don't even know where to begin anymore. So I like to call them cluster Bs. And they really are disordered, and they don't know that they're disordered. And they come from disordered families, and these families are cult-like. And if you stray from the unwritten family rules, you're subjected to cult-like punishments, anywhere from being a scapegoat to ostracized to such emotional abuse, which, again, causes all the different types of health problems and drug addictions and things like that. So it's a really hard thing for people to understand, and 96% of families in America, according to the APA, which is the American Psychological Association, are mildly to severely dysfunctional.
So we're all dysfunctional.
Pretty much, and this information to get healthy hasn't been out there. You know, it hasn't been out there until recently. And Facebook has so many groups, and if you just type in narcissists, the recovery groups are everywhere. And you start to understand when you become an adult and you try to heal, if you come from one of these types of families, which most of us do, what's wrong with you? You know? If you are in fact the type of person that becomes a self-saboteur, say depressed, or has like complex PTSD, which I suffer from and am overcoming from my family of origin. Excuse me. I apologize for that. My phone is clicked in. From my family of origin, I grew up with overt, raging alcoholics. But that wasn't until I was around 9 years old. In my developmental stages, I was raised by a Depression-era aunt who became a doctor of education. I had my grandmother and my grandfather around, you know, Depression-era, who really put me in this bubble of love. Now, by the time the child is 9 years old, you know, you think that, okay, the child's 9, everything's okay. My mother got divorced before I was born. My father was extremely abusive. So the minute they kind of stepped out, I kind of became the scapegoat of the family. And I only lasted in that family for about 7 years before I moved out, shortly before I was 16 years old. And what went in on that in my family of origin is what goes on in alcoholic homes, from emotional to physical to sexual violence. And it really sets you up in life to internalize that you're at fault. Okay? So you are set up to run into somebody that's abusive or on the cluster B style of personality disorders, which is what happened. And again, they don't understand this until they have what is called a narcissistic break. And that means that their whole life comes caving in on them, and they're basically going to lose everything. And that's kind of what happened to my family in 2009. My husband was diagnosed as a passive-aggressive personality disorder, which they have taken out of the Cite God's Bible, with covert narcissistic tendencies. And I was literally driven out of my mind. What they do, what these abusers do, and they don't mean to, because it's in their family of origin. Their family of origin and my families of origin they're cannibalistic. They kind of eat each other alive, you know, and very few escape. If you don't follow the family unspoken and sometimes you're disowned, you're ostracized, you're lied about, you know, all the family secrets are swept under the carpet. They act like a cult, like an army, and they will change your reality like it didn't really happen. And you will gaslight you. And, you know, you wake up in this world that you can't even believe exists.
Let me ask you this. Let me jump in here real quick.
Yeah.
Because actually, Andy has a question, but I'm going to let him come in just a moment. But I'm putting in Andy as well. Just for those who don't understand, Andy is the executive producer of Freedom Talk Radio, but today he is my co-host, so we're going to let him just pop in whenever he needs to. But I want to ask this question of you because we've always asked this, and I think you may have heard this when I had Chad Meek on my last show, or maybe it was just a conversation that he and I had separately. I don't remember. But it was, in short, when I used to live in Washington, D.C., there was a mental hospital we had to pass when we wanted to go in a certain direction, just from where we lived. And my friend and I back then, we used to ask, who are the crazy people, the ones on the inside of that gate or those of us on the outside? The real question is what is normal? Because everybody's got a different definition of what normal is.
Well, I can answer that.
Go for it.
So out of the, I would say 10% of healthy families, a healthy families, they notice, label, and affirm feelings. So in other words, you're autonomous to have any kind of feelings you want, as long as they're, displayed in a healthy manner without blame. They share feelings openly and honestly. They have abundant communication with each other and about the world, and their worldviews are allowed to be all kinds of different worldviews. Say, I'm going to give something really silly and simple. Say in a family that you have a Democrat or a Republican, no one is going to call that other person stupid. They're going to listen actively to each other. Right. Well, that is a dysfunctional family. They provide an environment of trust and safety. That means they don't demonize your mistakes. Mm-hmm. It's like when you're a child and 3 years old and you see a kitty cat on a table and you want to poke its eye because it's so pretty. Okay? Mm-hmm. So the child pokes the eye, and the parent will come and grab the kid's hand and basically shame that child to death like it's the most evil thing on this planet. Well, it's seeing the cat's eye for the first time. It thinks it's pretty. The child thinks it's pretty, so it can poke it. Okay? Mm-hmm. So that can go from those kinds of tendencies to normal sexual tendencies to children, to shaming them. Shame is a huge, huge destructive thing. So in healthy families, you encourage the uniqueness of the individual, of all the individual members. You respect privacy of thoughts and feelings and space. You openly express spiritual beliefs and values, and you don't have to all fit under one, sit up, stand down,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You don't have to sheep your feelings of spirituality, but you do have spiritual values. Uh-huh. They teach risk-taking. They celebrate and acknowledge the family strength. And they teach respect for the environment and for each other, and compassion. That falls, under compassion training. They're very sensitive to protect vulnerable people in their family and outside of groups. They're not cult-like. You'll notice in America, families are cult-like.
Yeah.
So, and what that means is that outsiders are rarely let in. And the outsiders that are let in either succumb to the family cult-like mentality or divorce happens. So they also embrace change. They're there for each other without condition. They have an open door policy, but maintain a sense of family. So that's, they're not cult-like. So the family members have all kinds of different friends from all kinds of different backgrounds, but they still, they're a family. So there's autonomy there. It's balanced in, child and or adult focus. They model forgiveness and healing. They encourage critical thinking. So they don't tell you what to think. If your child wants to say that the sky is green today, the parent doesn't, a healthy parent would never say, you're wrong.
Yeah.
So, so the list of that goes on. And if there's a problem that comes within a family, because we have such a small grasp of what the mind is, say an addiction in the family comes, there's no blame game. Everybody comes to the table to the rescue of the person that is in trouble and figures out solutions, whether they have to bring in professionals or not. If there is a problem within the marriage and the family, everybody comes to the rescue of that marriage. and rather than blames or, abandons, they pull in experts and or whatever else is needed to not only help that marriage, but help the children of that marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the list of that type of thing goes on. There's no secret. So we all make mistakes. We all, do things that are or shady or whatever, and age appropriately. And it's not demonized, but rather it's explained why you're actually hurting yourself in not telling the truth or doing something that's destructive, rather than you are so stupid.
Yeah. Andy, you had a question that you wanted to ask?
Yeah, that's now gone to 3.
Okay, go for it.
I'll try and remember. I know 2 of them anyway. I was just wondering then, how can you be dysfunctional as a couple, married couple, with all the problems of someone with a personality disorder, because borderline personality, for an example, says you do argue with your partner, you do argue with your family. So how can you kind of, be accepted and be dysfunctional? 'Cause it's not the person's fault who's got the dysfunction, the personality disorder. It's not the person of the couple or the family who are dysfunctional because they're living with an illness. And then my second question probably follows on that after you've been for the professional help.
How do you deal with someone that has a personality disorder? That is extremely difficult, especially if it is destructive to your mind, because you will come down with complex PTSD, and your health and your self-esteem will be absolutely ripped from you. And if there are children in the family, all of the responsibilities fall on your lap. Borderline is often mistaken for complex PTSD and vice versa. So I have a couple famous friends that I won't mention that actually live in your neck of the woods that were falsely diagnosed as borderlines, and they actually had complex PTSD, which do often mirror the same type of behaviors. And what those behaviors are, if you've been like me, and it's just taken me so long to heal, but I moved out before I was 16. By the time I was 26, I got into therapy because I was pregnant and I knew I did not want to repeat my family history, and it would if I didn't get in there and get the help. And I went to parenting classes after parenting classes. Well, I didn't know from my childhood that I had PTSD because, again, this was all so new. I'm 45. That was back in 1996. So my therapist didn't, really know. But she did advise me to divorce my family of origin. So you might want to check if it's actually a brain injury. Now, that's the difference. Complex PTSD or PTSD is a brain injury. And if you get triggered into fight or flight response, you can have 50 enemies in your head. And believe me, you're going to pull out your guns and you're going to torch somebody.
Well, actually, you're my wife's age. She has borderline personality disorder. She had that diagnosis. They've recently changed it 2 years ago to personality disorder undefined with traits of emotional whatever, outbursts or whatever. So she don't understand and how to use her emotion properly. What they've done to her, which is kind of the second question, and then I didn't want it to be all about me, but this situation is very common. I mean, you've mentioned one thing already, that they mess up the borderline personality disorder diagnosis, and it's probably PTSD, definitely. The next question was, so you decided then, to go to the health services, and because of budget and monetary constraints, they don't have the actual treatment that you need, which is probably cognitive cognitive behavioral therapy or something very similar?
Well, there's so many paths and so many different ways. I've been very lucky that all my life I've invested in my friendships, and reciprocal friendships, and I have not stopped going to therapy. I have not stopped learning. So there are so many different modalities. One is having an excellent support group. Two is being able to identify, what actually occurred. And, three is figuring out what modality works for you.
Well, what they do over here, I'm afraid, is give you mental health drugs, and they give you horrendous side effects. They don't want to. Don't want to fix you in the UK. The big pharma and the chemists in the UK, they just want to. Here we go. There's a pill. Problem solved, and just keep collecting that every week, and you'll be fine. But there comes a time when you get internal voices because of the pressure in your brain is getting so big that the only thing you can do, you fight these voices as much as you can. But when they tell you to do things that get you into trouble and eventually get you into prison for 2 months, that is when the system has failed. I mean, and that's my wife's situation.
Yeah, it's the drug pushers are pretty bad. I was put on Xanax 7 years ago, and I'm pretty good at researching what this drug is, but these benzos are nuts. So I understand that, and you really, I'm a very lucky person, and unfortunately, it doesn't sound like your wife has the support system that she needed at all. And she's, very lucky to have you, to be there, to be that support as, I'm helping my husband recover from his personality disorder.
Guess what? The authorities then blame the husband because, as they put it, the couple, what was it now? Not dysfunctional, but another word, when you can't express your feelings to each other properly, the dynamics is no good in the relationship. I mean, they forgot to mention that, the borderline personality and the voices had a lot to do with that dynamics.
Yeah, if you're constantly cut down and berated and belittled, that's what if that's what she's doing, then it's definitely a borderline. If she can clearly say to you, I'm triggered, I'm afraid, what you're doing right now is making me afraid, can you be supportive right now because I don't know basically where I am at this point, because you slip into flashbacks.
Oh, brilliant. I mean, so what you're saying then, if then she couldn't and she does things like, I don't know, let's say she overeats chocolate bars or she, when it got very serious, she was calling the police. But let's say that behaviour is triggered because it is borderline and it isn't something that you can talk about. I mean, how do we help people who can't talk to their families or their loved ones, to make them manage the borderline? If
you have a destructive family, it's better to go no contact because they will keep destroying you. If there is no reciprocation and no support and no love for somebody who is disordered, but just judgment, or they want you back in their grasp, okay? If that makes any sense. With these narcissistic families, they want you back in their grasp to control you. So it is better to not have any contact.
You're right there. We actually did depart from all our family. The only problem now is that gamble, of course, and with me being the only member, that yes, there is loads and loads and loads of love, but we still haven't solved the problem. I'm having a stressful time at the moment, Andy. My voices have come back, or I'm worried about this dream I had. Why can't she just say that rather than do other behaviour? and then I have to guess it's because of something bad that's happened. Yeah.
Melanie, let me ask
It's really hard. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask you a question. It's kind of going along the same line as what Andy's asking. I have a family. I guess you would probably say that it's narcissistic in its own nature. I had to pull away from it. But
well, we're
actually,
Jewish. Overt narcissism definitely runs in our lineage.
Okay. But actually, no, I'm also a holistic therapist. Now, the show's about me, so I just want to see if you have something that is, you could say, it's a natural remedy. In other words, instead of going to Big Pharma, as Andy has been saying, Big Pharma is there for money. It's not there for cure. They even admit it. We're not here to cure. We're here just to give you a relief for the pain. So they're not there for the curative
to make
side.
money. They're an experiment.
Exactly. So do you looked up or have you seen anything that's like a natural remedy for this?
Well, yeah, there are definitely different modalities, but the person who is disordered has to want to first acknowledge that, and that is tantamount to annihilation for that person. And I don't know, Andy, if your wife has acknowledged this, that she does suffer from it, or if everybody else is just labeling her this way.
No, well, what the problem is, she knows she's not well, or at least she knows she's got a disorder of such. She often says she's slow and stupid, and she thinks other people are calling her stupid. Now, I got out of that problem by sent her on an education course, which is one-to-one education course. And because she was meeting new people and there was no pressure to perform in front of others because it was one-to-one, she now realizes that she is intelligent, and just because you don't have certificates doesn't mean you're stupid. She was always led to believe she was stupid as a young child because she spent 16 years in a care home, 4 years with a disabled narcissistic mother, and then she married me when she was 21, and we've been married for 24 years nearly.
Yeah, my husband and I are going on 23.
It's spooky because we just had a last 23rd wedding anniversary a couple of months back, so it's spooky that very similar situations, different partners, female, male, 23 years nearly married or just over, same kind of pattern, it's spooky.
It is a little spooky. And at some point in time, if you can't, what are you doing for yourself, first of all? Because I have no doubt that if you have lived with her personality disorder and issues, you have some form of PTSD. There's no doubt about it. So, and what that is you basically can become immobile, and you live in fear a lot of times of people. And I never used to be like that. I was just happy-go-lucky, and I still am pretty much, but there was 3 years where I spent basically laying in the bed, and then my eyes woke up to the rest of the world and what the world was really like, and I couldn't even fathom it because they live. They're out there. So what are you doing for yourself to find relief?
Can I answer that one just for me personally? I mean, you may want to follow that up with some more ideas. Because the children have been taken into care, allegedly, we didn't look after them properly, and we had Munchausen's by proxy, of course. They always have to throw that one at you with your personality disorder. So I suppose I have a form of PTSD by getting back at the authorities because, you can't lie about the authorities. Of course you can't. But you can set up a radio network and make sure that every genuine case that you come across gets a voice out there for them authorities to feel bad in a little way. That's how I feel. I want them to feel bad that woman, that man, that child, they've let down. And I think, they should realise they've let them down and put more support in. Now, we've tried this with the sex abuse cases, and although it's not anywhere near what we want, we're getting there. In the north of England, we've had Rochdale, we've had Rotherham, we've had the Jimmy Savile scandal. It is now all coming out, and thanks to Brian Clare and people who work undercover around the country, this truth is now coming out. Unfortunately,
well, they're all trauma-based. The American royalty and the royalty everywhere is all trauma-based, and they're all very narcissistic families. And you break from that narcissistic family. You break from that family, and you go against the family of that. It's the same. It's just a different level. It's say something kind of funny to break the ice a little bit. It's in comparison to, your basic average hillbilly to your highfalutin narcissist, where they will make family members disappear if they go against the rules, unspoken and spoken rules of the family.
I was going to add, unfortunately, with the new child abuse inquiry in the UK, they've had 2 failures so far with the leader of that inquiry. The third one is a New Zealand judge with no links to corruption. But in New Zealand, the lady absolutely, covers up corruption as a judge. So, and that's the leader of our next child abuse inquiry. So I don't think she'll get far either. But what I do feel guilty about my wife's problem. I do feel that, is she going to pick up the phone again, ring 999? I mean, I wish I had you here about 8 weeks ago. I needed someone like that at that time. Kirk and other people helped us through the difficult times, but I couldn't see what I was doing wrong. And it was only when...
You're not doing anything wrong. I'm not a professional. I have read all the books. I am working on this. If I had to give my amateur diagnosis, you've got a huge trauma bond to your wife. You also have what's called Stockholm Syndrome, which she will value you and then devalue you. So you're on this roller coaster ride where you think, okay, things are going straight, right?
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you get this bat or knife in your back, and you have no idea why. So those things will render you with those types of disorders, which all roll into PTSD and codependency. And at some point, you're going to have to figure out if you want to survive, because this will kill you. I've had several surgeries, gastrointestinal surgeries because of this, because I don't eat because of my nerves. So we as a family are on the mend because I was very lucky in the therapist that I chose, and very, very lucky in the friends that I was in, the networks that I was able to build. The problem in society is that there's too much pride, and this goes on in every home. So you're not the only home. Every home has this dysfunction going on, and that's why families are breaking apart. You don't have family systems anymore. You have a bunch of finger pointers and blame. But you do have to heal yourself, and the things that I hear coming out of you, God, I feel guilty. It's all my fault. It's not. And that is exactly what a disordered person is. They will rip everything from you, and they don't mean to. They don't mean to. It's what's been done to them. And then whatever happened in your childhood to tell you that you were not good enough. So you've got to get yourself some help, some boundaries, and how to make her feel safe if she gets panicked, but not allow, for the abuse.
What type of therapies or help would you suggest? I mean, we are working with...
you have codependency groups there. Are you familiar with I can get you resources, and we can start. You've got free places to meet. I'm going to be in London actually in June, and I would love to meet you.
Oh, that'd be a pleasure.
And I can bring you a wealth of information where you can lead these groups not only by healing yourself, but have these groups move to heal together, because that's what you need. That's what you need.
Okay, can I interrupt the two of you?
You beat yourself up. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Let me just interrupt you guys just for 30 seconds. I wanted to do this, but I was listening to you guys for so much. It's like, whoa, we missed the time. Let me just throw up a quickie. It's only 34 seconds long, and we'll be right back. You guys can continue, so hold on.
freedomtalkradio.co.uk. This is the most diverse, most amazing, one of the funniest radio stations you could ever listen to on the internet. I've heard so much stuff from the ups, the downs, the lefts, the rights, the politics, the non-politics, the schmolitics, whatever you want to call them. It's great.
And welcome back to K-Wave 6 Radio. My guest here today is Melanie Beres. We've been talking about a lot of sociology issues. Actually, I forget the exact title that we've gone at, but I'll let Melanie do that. We're going to be taking another break in about 20 minutes, and after that break, if you want to call in, you can do that by the number on the radio show link, but if you don't have it up right now, it's in the United States and Canada, area code 347-677-0812. Once again, that is 347-677-0812. We'll be taking calls right after our next break, which will be roughly 20 minutes. And if you prefer to call in via Skype, you can do, just have to come to our show page. If you're listening to us off of our blog, you may not be able to get it from there, but just click on the link below and come to the Blog Talk Radio page and click on the Skype icon. Follow the prompts, and you can talk to Melanie Beres right from there. So take your choice. Andy says he has to take a call or something, so I'm not sure if he's still here at the moment. But Melanie, why don't you continue from there and see where we can go?
Okay. Where would you like to start? Well, I can tell you. Geez, there's so much. When this first blew up, I really was so curious as to these people and how they can actually exist so self for so long before their mask gets ripped off into what they actually are, project, and think, that I went out and I got my life coaching degree. And I'm going to tell you about a very sad story of one of the interventions that I did that just didn't end up so well. There's this mother who is a single mother, and she's just a beautiful woman, 4 beautiful daughters, and they grew up in a very Christianized cult home with a very abusive father, and the second eldest child, who was 21 at the time, was going ballistic, and she definitely was histrionic, borderline something. So I'd come up.
Please stay tuned. We're suffering technical difficulties, but we'll be right back. While we wait for our guest to connect, let me remind you about our Thoughts for Growth podcast. Our Thought for Growth episodes are 3 to 5 minute thoughts which are inspirational, motivational, and or thought-provoking. K-Wave 6 Radio is dedicated to bringing positive programming in all that we do. Thoughts for Growth airs on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays at 9 a.m. Eastern, on Podomatic.com, iTunes, Stitcher.com, on our RSS feed, and on YouTube. Be sure to follow our blog. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. All of our links to follow and our media players can be found at www.kwave6radio.tk. That's kwave6 with the number 6, radio.tk, or, if you prefer, www.kwave6radio.wordpress.com. Okay, welcome back to K-Wave 6 Radio. I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. Andy is taking care of the phone calls today, and I'm trying to read a message from him right now. Okay, let me play something else real quick here. We're trying to get our guest back online, so let me play another little quick here, and we'll be right back as soon as I find it here. Hold on.
FreedomTalkRadio.co.uk.
Let's go!
This is the most diverse, most amazing, one of the funniest radio stations you could ever listen to on the internet. I've heard so much stuff from the ups, the downs, the left, the right.
The politics, the non-politics, the schmolitics, whatever you want to call them.
It's great.
Boy, that was too quick. We're trying to get Melanie Beres back right now.
I can multitask if you can't.
That's all right. I just sent you the number.
Yeah, no, I said I can multitask. So I can talk while I'm dialing numbers and playing jingles and.
Okay, fine. So you're the younger brother. Okay. Anyway, yeah. As soon as we get Melanie back online, we'll continue on with the interview. But just wanted to mention in that last, while we're waiting segment there, it went on for a few seconds, or just about 2 minutes.
Hey.
Hi there. K-Wave 6 Radio is not throwing on the Thoughts for Growth segments anymore. We're doing, for podcasts, we're doing either interviews or I'm doing little solo bits, whatever the case may be. But also, I've also started writing again on my blog, which is called Thoughts for Growth at WordPress.com, or thoughtsforgrowth.wordpress.com. And I like to write, so my thoughts come out a lot better over there. And we'll keep the shows here for. Anyway, we got all that. Welcome back, Melanie. So let's not talk about me. You got about another 5 minutes before we open up for call-ins, if we have anybody that's out there that wants to call in. And anyway, so go for it, Melanie. And I think Andy had a question he was trying to get answered before he found out we were offline.
Okay.
Yeah, I've forgotten that one, but you never finished the other one. What can people do? Let's say they've got no supportive family, the medical services don't want to provide therapies. So what can a couple do to help themselves? Now, one thing we are doing is what they call family therapy. You don't necessarily have to have a family, but it's about talking about what upsets you, what makes you happy, how to avoid things, how not to avoid things, and how to be open with each other. So it's almost like marriage counselling in one way, but it is family therapy as well. I find that useful. Now, we don't have many support groups because you have to fit under a label. That's for the borderline personality people. That's for the Hearing Voices Network. That's for the husbands who can't cope. That's for, and this is for that. So we don't have a general one where we can all just go in, discuss our issues and It's a shame, really.
Well, that's where you can start one, and I can get you the resources to do one. And you are going to have to separate the ones that have the personality disorders to those of us that are living with personality disordered people, because it's not going to help either party, if that makes any sense. The personality disordered people are really they're so resistant to change.
But don't they have voices, though, some of these? You know, if you have voices, is it because of the medication? Is it because of the personality disorder? Or
no, that could be schizophrenia.
Is it schizophrenia? So it's very difficult if somebody has got a bit of everything.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
They would need to go to two groups. One group.
They would need to go to, right. They would need to go to two groups. And one group, support group, would be emotional regulation, how to deal with triggers and stressful situations in a healthy manner towards your loved one. So that would be a support group that would be facilitated, and where they can go into a non-judgmental environment, because mentally ill people shouldn't be judged. Nobody should be judged. We're trying to cope here with something that is so new, that has been out since the beginning of time, and there's strategies to heal it, and it does start in childhood. So they need that separate kind of group of coping skills that are healthy. The caregivers or the caretakers that are remaining while they modify, because they will never change. They can modify. They will never change. They can modify to stop, not, and react, and stop, not, and harm the other person. So, but they will never change. Their personality disorder is their personality disorder, but it can remain dormant and under control as long as they follow the health modalities that they need to follow that works for them. And there's just so many out there, because no one size fits all. So I can help you get the resources that you need to start both groups, if you want to stay with this. Because if you are literally not living, you have to decide whether or not you can put up with this. And because that's also doing yourself a disservice, because you're not going to be able to be healthy unless you can get the support and recovery you need from this style of abuse. And it is horrific. It puts you into realities that, you didn't even think you belonged in, because they're just delusions of the other person that they project on you. And if you are the style of person that, doesn't have the strong enough boundaries to go, okay, wait a minute, you're lying to me. But how can you look at somebody that you're in love with and that you love so much, and they can just sit there and lie to your face? And you think to yourself, well, God, did I really do this?
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
We're about to take our mid-show break. Is actually in the last half an hour. We're going to take a 2-minute break here just for a moment. And for those who want to call in, I'm going to give you the number that's on Skype and let Andy give the one for UK. You can call in by Skype by going to the Blog Talk Radio page, hitting the Skype button, and it will connect you directly to us. Or you can call in from Canada, the United States, by your landline or cell phone, area code 347-677-0812. Once again, it's 347-677-0812, and we'll be right back in about 2 minutes.
Hi, this is Al Sussman, the author of Changing Times, 101 Days That Shaped a Generation, published by Parading Press. And you're listening to the always interesting Kirk Spencer on K-Wave 6 Radio.
Thank you for joining us for today's show. please visit the Freedom Talk Radio site for other great programs at freedomtalkradio.co.uk. To listen to our show archives, visit our website's homepage, then click on the YouTube icon, or just go to YouTube and enter K-Wave 6. That's the number 6. Follow K-Wave 6 Radio on Facebook and on Twitter, or on our website's blog. Advertisers, please check out our low advertising fees for worldwide advertising, all at kwave6radio.tk. That's K-Wave 6, the number 6, radio.tk.
Hi, this is Dr. Nick Leroy, and you're listening to K-Wave 6 Radio with its host, Kirk Spencer. I'm a holistic physician. I specialize in women's health, breast thermography, the alternative treatment of cervical dysplasia, and gastrointestinal disorders. And you can find me at drnick.net.
And welcome back to K-Wave 6 Radio. My guest here today is Melanie Beres, and we're going to open up the phone lines if anyone is available to do that. I know this is during work hours in the U.S., but, hey, if you're calling from the United Kingdom, Andy, what's that number real quick over in the United Kingdom?
It's 01444 390 270.
All righty then. Why don't you give that once again just in case?
01444 390 270.
Beautiful. Before we get back into this, I'm going to let Andy, because Andy has this really at heart, and Melanie has it at heart as well. Let me ask you, because before we took the break, you were talking about, Andy brought it up, is that everybody's got a specialized group. And I noticed this in a lot of things in life, is that people are getting into these little details. I have a specialty in this little detail, and there's another detail over here, but there doesn't seem to be, and I'm using the word holistic. Holistic means is binding everything all together. There doesn't seem to be a holistic viewpoint on this. It's just everybody's got a detail that they want to focus on. Now, I say holistic because in a very short story, extremely short, I had a patient here in Mexico come in one day with his mom, and he looked like he had swallowed a basketball whole. I'm talking about inflated and all. He was typical height, but he just looked like he was 9 months pregnant. Couldn't figure it out. He said he went to 4 doctors, including one specialist, and nobody could figure out what the problem was. And his problem was he couldn't urinate. The doctors couldn't figure it out. I put him on a massage table. I figured out what it was. Every point that I hit, it was doing auricular therapy, was related to stress. I sat him down and I talked to him, and I asked him about stress. 2 days later, I told him how to relax. 2 days later, his mother called up and says he is urinating and he can't stop. In other words, that was how big his bladder was, filled up with urine. Mm-hmm. And the drugs are not working. All these other little things that people kept throwing at him were not working, but just taking the holistic viewpoint. In other words, listen to him. Figure out what he has to say, and then you can figure out the problem. And I think this is what Andy is asking about is there a holistic way of doing this without having to go to every little group that's got a specialty going on?
No. Disordered people, there is no cure for. They can modify, and it takes a very, very long time, and you have to learn how to protect yourself, your space, your boundaries, and if you're going to stay with a disordered person while they heal, because essentially they stop growing at about, between 3 and 9 years old. And I watched my husband go through his terrible twos, and it was frightening. And he's at a point now where he is primarily modified, and his therapists are advising no contact at all with his family of origin, which is a very good thing. My therapist, when I was 30 years old, told me no contact with my family of origin as well. Because they're disordered and they will suck you in and cannibalize you again. So with disordered people, there is no cure. With people who have brain injuries caused by disordered people or stress-related factors from that, there's cure. So there is a cure. Disordered people can be modified, but there is no cure. They will always be that way. And then lyrics are had under stress. Now, can they eventually modify to the point of, you're not walking on eggshells and waiting for an invisible dart to hit you in the back of the head because you did something 3 days ago that you didn't know you did? No. So you're going to just have to learn to turn around and deflect that. Or if it makes you that sick, you're going to have to walk away. So that's the unfortunate and fortunate reality of the situation. As far as support groups goes and getting support, this needs to be talked about. It's in every family, in every home. And, the cannibalistic intergenerational family. So it has to be talked about. It has to be taught in schools, compassion training, ethics training. All of those modalities need to be taught in school, and support needs to be there.
All right, let me ask you this, Melanie, because even when I was getting into holistic therapies, and one of the things that actually made me happy with it was the fact that it was pulling in information from ancient as well as modern. I don't deal with modern medicine. I hate it. I've never liked it. And I found that food is a curative thing. It also can be the source of your problem. Herbs and all these other things can be, as well as learning what's going on in your head, because a lot of mental illnesses, well, even physical illnesses, all start in your head. So the thoughts are what take you there.
Environmental factors.
Oh, yeah. But when I was a child, I learned that my family, they mean well, so I'm not going to sit up here and berate them and just kind of go, well, they were the loudest things. Yeah. They're still, even to the day, they still have what they consider to be your best at heart, but it's the way they go about doing it, and this is the reason why I just kind of no, I just prefer not to go there, because you're telling me that your ideas for my life are better than what I believe is good for my life. And that's where I had to walk away from them.
That's called cannibalism. Yeah.
So
that's not unconditional love. That is love with conditions.
Yeah, exactly. Andy, did you say that we have a caller coming in, or is already there? Andy's disappeared again. Oh, no. Okay, he left me a message. I thought, no, he was expecting a phone call. He's on another phone call. Okay, anyway. Yeah. Okay, fine, we're done. No, I was just checking. So anyway, how do you see that? Because that was more of how I grew up, and even to this day, the reason why I just kind of keep an arm's distance with family and with people that I grew up with, that they think that, well, even as, this may not be in your same venue, but let's go there anyway, is that I've even asked one of the people I grew up with a long time ago, I said, so what do people back in, because he moved to California, then he moved back to our hometown, and I said, so what do people say? He says, people think you're all right. They just don't understand where you're coming from. They don't understand how you think and what you do and how you live. So, in other words, this is going to what you said, unconditional love. In other words, they can't accept me unless they understand what I'm about. In other words, if I don't fit into their category or their idea of life, they kind of like, he's a little strange.
Yes.
But then again.
Yes, and that is, it's cult. It's a cult program's mentality, and they all kind of flow in the same zombie-like vampiric dimension, and they need supply. So you're going to be the supply because of jealousy, envy, any number of reasons could be there. And you do have to set those boundaries. And what's so sad is these people are so trapped in their way of thought process. And they're so spiteful. And they're so vengeful if you don't think, talk, and walk like them, that they will literally cut your life off if you need help. But then they will go out to the rest of the world and lie about you. I mean, this is how disordered people are, and it is in every family group. If you stray from your family of origin, that is a cult-like family that doesn't display the signs of not only are they are loyal to their own family members, but they have different kinds of friends that are considered family, of all different kinds of socioeconomic backgrounds. That's where you can get a cue. You can get a clue. Are these families emotionally incested? Do they only spend time with their immediate family? And maybe a few other friends just once in a while superficially like to play a poker game or something like that, like once a month, But there's no vulnerability there. So and it's very scary because if you deflect from the family rules that are either written or unwritten, you will be disowned. Your life support will be cut off. You will be emotionally violated. Everything's your fault. So you've got to go no contact, like I did with my family of origin. And then I was able to step back in with boundaries. So I'll call my mother and my two alcoholic sisters once in a while just to check in how they're doing. They don't affect me anymore. I stay on the phone for about 5 minutes, and that's it. If they ever needed something, and I had the means to do it, of course I would do the best I could to be there, but I've been able to process those boundaries. They don't affect me. I know they're very sick individuals. Because anytime you're going to cut off somebody that needs some sort of life support, and this is your family member, just because they don't talk and walk like you, and they know you're in peril, and they know that you're up against the wall dealing with everything yourself, especially in an abusive environment, then they're not worth your time. So, and the sad thing about it is that narcissists die alone. And before the time they realize it, it's just too late. It's too late.
Yeah.
So,
well.
and I see it all the time.
Yeah,
so
I've seen it quite a bit myself.
All of those things that they wanted you to be and they wanted to force you to be, and they look down upon you and judge you for, either silently or overtly, it just doesn't matter in the end. What does matter is if you understand that you are in a completely dysfunctional relationship and there's children involved and there's abuse going on, that the family rallies around and pulls in professionals to get that family back up on its feet. Whether it's cancer, a thyroid, or something that's going on in the family that takes another family member down. But most of families come with conditions.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They come with conditions.
You got to leave them.
I was thinking about the old expression, if it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it must be a duck. Well, they want you to be the duck. If the family is all ducks, you have to be a duck. You cannot be the swan.
Yep. No. You can't be the swan. Oh, they frown upon that. They will take you down for any accomplishment to level you. It's called leveling you. So yeah, it's just very sad, and they don't see it. They don't see it until it's too late.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of, I mean, I've heard this expression even here in Mexico, but my ex-wife used to say this one quite a lot. It says, we're just like crabs in a barrel. It says, by the time one crab gets over the edge and just about to get free, there's one that's going to reach up from inside and pull you back down in there with them. But it's kind of a sad story because we cannot ever grow. We cannot even let other people grow because we run the guilt on them of, oh, you're not like what I thought you would be, or you're not doing the way that I thought you should be. And, I mean, there's a whole list of how many different ways people try to keep you in that same box that they're in because, as you said earlier in the show, these people don't want to change. They don't even see that they are the problem. And that's
no, they really don't. And the jealousy and the envy and their emotional development stops really between the ages of, 3 and 12. So they're mean little people on the inside. If they don't get their way, they have a tantrum and they go in the corner. And, oh, God forbid if you call them on some kind of terrible behavior in a very compassionate way, it's never their fault. Or you bring up solutions and they'll go, oh, okay, and then they never follow through. So you just got to leave those people behind, and it's very sad because in the end, they're alone. They think they have the power in the beginning, and they do. They really do, especially with young families that have to deal with grandparents who are now 85% of the supporters of young families. Because of the way the economics are, they are supporting the household. They're supporting medical bills. They're supporting, because my Generation X, we're in a double depression, yet we've got the media saying everybody in America lives in a mansion and all those kinds of things, when that's not reality. 65% of the suburbs in America are poverty-stricken.
Yeah.
And are getting support from their grandparents. Well, if that support comes with a price tag, it's better to give it up, drop to the bottom, and pull yourself up the best way you can. And luckily, in America, you do have support groups out there, which is unfortunate that Andy doesn't, but I will get him the material to start those groups, because they're fantastic writers and people that have programs that will heal that person, So we can stop these legacies. We can stop the cannibalistic family, which is 98% of your families out there. And healthy families really face issues and allow people to be individuals and are there for them in their times of need, without condition, if they have it to support. It's kind of like if your family member, erupts and somebody in the home is severely sick. You would think that family member, that grandparent or something, would be on the first plane. No. They let that other person just deal with it by themselves, But then they'll go out and tell the rest of the family members how supportive they are and what's wrong with, And it's really sick and twisted.
Let me ask you a quickie question, and I'm going to let Andy, I think he's back on with us anyway. I'm going to let him ask because we only have about around 9 minutes to go. Let me ask you, because, my idea of unconditional love is loving a person, and when a person does something you don't like what they've done, but you still love the person. In other words, I can hate the action, I can still love the person. That's my idea of unconditional love shortly. What is yours? Feel free to say.
Mine is, mine is if you don't like what the person is doing, you gently communicate it to them. Please don't step on that crack because it makes my skin crawl. If they tell you, oh, God, that's stupid, then you know that's a person that you want to stay well away from, because we all come with our wounds, and no matter what the wound is, it needs to be respected, period. So that's unconditional love. And when the person is in trouble, if you have the means to help, you drop what you're doing and you go help, if you have the means.
Yeah.
You don't let that person just, suffocate. So that's unconditional love. If you respect each other's wounds, because we all have them, and conflict is not about blame. It's about questioning in a way that doesn't make the person feel defensive. Did you mean to do that to me or say that to me? Because that kind of hurt my feelings and it felt like a put down. Now, dealing with the passive aggressive is an art form, because the language that they use, you will never be able to know what they really mean. And you can't put either a negative or a positive on it. Quantumly you can. But it's like, oh, that's such a beautiful dress you have on. Uh-huh. Really? So it's that insidious, the passive aggressive. That insidious. So it's an art form to really detect what if you even can, and you might not even want to stick around to wrap your head around it,
Yeah.
So
we're going to have to continue this conversation on another show. But Andy, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, sir.
Okay. I don't know I know you had to take a phone call. You got it done, so you're back. We have just under 7 minutes to go. So, do you have anything you'd like to ask or question or contribute, whatever?
Yeah, well, common is an unconditional love. You do your best at all times, and even when you can't, you still have to do your best, because that's what unconditional love is. Can be blind sometimes, but you just got to always do your best, even when you can't. And I argue the fact that if you haven't got the resources to do your best, then you'd have to find them. But that's because I'm a romantic, and I'm taking my wife away when she comes home for renewing her wedding vows, just to give her that little bit of, okay, you've had 2 months of this. We won't talk about that. We're having fun because we're married, and that's what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. But incidentally, people who go to prison with personality disorders, and the medication has given them horrendous side effects, which is called medically induced psychosis, should be able to have this voice where they can scream and say, maybe a hotline, maybe the authorities, the police, the ambulance, the hospitals, the probation workers, the people in authority should have this one number that when someone calls them and saying, look, I'm going to bomb this building, I'm going to jump off this building, they should be giving somebody a number to call. If you want to talk like that, this is the number to call. If you're serious, hang on a minute and I'll get somebody to talk to you. Because if they're really serious about what they're doing, they will do it. But most people who ring up the police and say, look, I'm going to do this, don't really mean it.
Right.
They would probably, after a couple of minutes, break down and apologize. There's no need to send out officers to arrest, take them to court, give them more medication. That's probably the start of the problem. We need a venter's anger line, basically, for people with PTSD.
Yes. Oh, I totally agree with you on that one. And
we can monitor it in several time zones around the world. We've got New Zealand, Australia, the US, UK, and Europe. So in each time zone, 2 people in that country can man the phones and so on. Everyone be biting.
Well, I would definitely be happy to help get something like that started. I know all the authorities in the industry were trying to rack our heads to get this to the light, because it's just so prevalent in the court systems, and we do need to protect our children.
And what we're here for is, look, number one, we're here for them to shout at us, to vent their anger at us. The second thing we're here for is give them
resources.
A resource. Maybe there's a local person where they live in Michigan, say, we can say, look, go and talk to Debbie in Michigan. This is her number. She'll meet up with a coffee, tell you what to do. Tell you how to help yourself and others that can help you in that region. If you're in the UK and there's nobody near you and your nearest person just for that day is in America, well, we have a Skype system where we can call anybody in the world. We'll say, look, I'll add you to that lady over there. She'll be able to at least listen for now. It's a form of Samaritans for people with these conditions, and it keeps them out of prison. Nick Clegg last week said women who have got addictions and women who have got mental health problems, and men for that matter, shouldn't be in the prison system. They should be in hospital or in therapy.
They should be in a spa-like facility getting and learning how to love themselves. And once again, it's not curable, but it is modifiable where it can lay dormant, but you've got to be aware so you're not taken off guard by an invisible whip.
I think the invisible whip would come in the UK and USA. It's because, number one, you've been abused, so you report it to the police. You spend many months going through trauma, and they don't believe you. The second thing is there's compensation schemes for these victims. You don't get any money. So you're feeling as a victim survivor. No one's listening.
Right.
Let me stop you right there because we're coming up close to the end of the hour or end of our time. But I remember just as what you guys were just talking about, and Andy, you just finished it. When I was a child back in the United States, there used to be offices in downtown locations that were just offices for people to listen. You had a problem, you went over there, paid them a few dollars, and they would just sit there and listen. And that's the problem with our society right now is nobody wants to listen.
Right.
Yeah, nobody wants to listen, but everybody's got an idea, everybody's got a suggestion, everybody's going to tell you what to do. So you have about, just under a minute. You want to say something there, Melanie?
Yeah. It goes back to, again, community unity. And Andy, I am definitely, I would love to work with you and help you out in the UK, and I think your idea is brilliant. And I think we can bring the team in of American professionals and authors and Ph.Ds and psychologists that I know, as well as a few that I know in the UK that would do this, and where we help each other and we build community, and a strong one at that.
Absolutely.
Because there's no shame. There's no shame in any of this, and that is what drives people, is the shame.
Well, my final word on the matter is I always believe, where possible, everything should be free. But if they want to donate £1 or $1 towards setting up of an international system, we won't say no, but initially it's going to be free because, number one, we don't want to make no money out of nobody, and we don't want anybody to suffer.
Thank you for being a part of our listening audience. Be sure to keep up with our shows and our podcast via our blog, on Twitter, and in Facebook. All links, including our RSS feed, are available at kwave6radio.tk. That's kwave6, the number 6, radio.tk. All the best.